Welcome to Track Limits Live here on ATYL Media. Got to figure out a way to show my chat. This is the first time I'm using Restream, so I have no idea how this is going to work. But we're going to figure this out. So we'll see. We'll see how this works. Chat. Oh, there's the chat button. Perfect. Okay. That should work. All right. Welcome in everybody on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. My name is John, the Motorsport Enthusiast, and today is a live episode of Track Limits, talking everything Formula One. Got a lot of questions from people, which is great. Got some notes about things happening in the Formula One world as well. Just going to wait for some people to get in here and see how the heck this chat feature works, because I've never done this before. So we are about to figure this out. Woohoo, how fun is this? How fun is this? Oh, new comments will display here. There we go. Never miss a comment. Click on a chat message to display it on screen. That's perfect. Fantastic. All right. Hope everybody's doing well. How many people watched the Super Bowl? That's I'm going to start off with that. How many people watched the Super Bowl last night, and what did you think of it? Well, it's really not much of a Super Bowl. There's really no game, but it's fine. May have to go on my phone and see if these comments are coming in on the YouTubes. But yeah, who watched the Super Bowl and who are you going for? As I tune in, I guess nobody watched the Super Bowl. That's sad. Because there were some great IndyCar commercials and great Formula One commercials too. So, or not Formula One, NASCAR. This is a Formula One show. If there were Formula One commercials on a Super Bowl, that'd be crazy. But either way, I guess we're just going to move on. Oh, there's Adam. What's going on? I watched the Super Bowl and enjoyed it. Now it's motorsport time. Yes, it is. Yes, it is motorsport time. Adam, thank you for tuning in, buddy. And we're just going to go right in to some of the questions that we've gotten on this show before from our lovely Fred Hudson. Um, Basically, can we let Lance Stroll go out of F1? That's the nice way I'm going to put it. Um, I don't think Lance Stroll will ever leave F1, and I think we kind of need to leave that conversation at the door. I hate it. It sucks. There was actually a comment, I think, I forget who said it in one of my comments about Lance Stroll, and you know, basically he's not gonna he's not gonna leave F1 unless he retires, or Lawrence doesn't love him anymore. So we'll see how that goes. Either way, moving on to a real question. Uh, who is the best duo in Formula One? And I want to know your thoughts on this. Who do you think is the best driver combo in Formula One at this current time? And if you need some refresher on who's some of the driver combinations, so just starting off with Ferrari, you have Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc. You have McLaren with good old Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris. You have Mercedes with George Russell and Antonelli. You have Red Bull, Verstappen and Lawson. Who do you think is the best driver duo? Because I have a top three, and I listened to another F1 podcast, and I agree with their top three wholeheartedly on this. I guess you have, let's see what other driver combinations that would even be up there. You got Albon and Signs. Um, all right. Well, I think I'll just state my top three, starting from the bottom. Like I said, I agree with this other F1 podcast. It's on Sirius XM. I can't remember the name of it, but I think the third best driver lineup is gotta be. It's gotta be. It doesn't have to be. I'd say it's Albon and Signs overall, because if you think about who's on the lineup collectively as a whole, we don't know a lot about Liam Lawson in this car, obviously, and we know what Max can do. We looking at some of the other lineups, a lot of them are fresh, a lot of them have rookies in them. And from a skill perspective, I think Albon and Sainz is where it's at for number 3. Number 2, which number 1 and number 2 I think can be, argued. I think the second best is going to be Oscar and Piastri. My biggest reason why it's not number 1, and it would be number 1, it would be because of Lando's restarts. Uh, John, would you like to see the German GP come back? Yes, I would love to see the German GP come back. I would love to see Formula One expand into different countries and talking about going to Africa again. I think that's another great market there for sure. I think it should. Thorne said, "I wish Alonso had a real teammate. What a waste." Again, prayers go out to Lance Stroll, and I'd like to see him do well, but yeah, and that's another conversation. You have Alonso, a goat, really one of the best that we've seen, and from a driver duo perspective, obviously it's not there with Lance, and so I think number 2 is McLaren for me, and really looking at number 1 when you're talking about a team, it has, in my opinion, it has to be Ferrari because look at what Charles has done. Leclerc has been good, and I think when you're looking at a driver combo collectively, him and Hamilton, I think, is a better collective duo from a skill perspective, from a I would say from a focus perspective, from a finishing perspective, from a qual perspective, comparatively to Lando and Oscar. And plus, it's hard to discount a 7-time champ. I think Max would be up there if his teammate had a little bit more to offer, but obviously he's still early into his career. Liam Lawson also. By the way, if you haven't checked out his TikTok, dude can play guitar and he can sing. Just totally off topic. Um, he can actually he's multi-talented. So you might see him on America's Got Talent or The Voice, or maybe playing guitar on this season of Drive to Survive. And speaking of Drive to Survive, we get that season coming out on March 7th. So season 7 drops on March 7th, 5 days after the IndyCar season starts, 9 days before the Formula One season takes off in Australia. So I think that's going to be an exciting one. I'm curious, really quick, what are your thoughts on this season of Drive to Survive? Do you watch Drive to Survive? I guess that's a big question. And are you a fan of it? I think it's a great show. I think if you want a dramatized version of Formula One, there you go. If that's your cup of tea, I think that's a perfect show for you. But Drive to Survive launches on March 7th. So looking at some other questions here live. What questions do I answer? I'm going to go with Chad's Many Wheels on Instagram asks, how will Lewis get on in his first season in Ferrari? So basically, how will he do? We had this question last time. I think he'll do well. I think that this season you're going to see a lot of parity. I think you're going to see a lot of winners. Last season, I believe we had 6 or 7 different winners, if I'm not mistaken. I think you might have some more. So that means if you have 8 2-time winners, that's 16 races. That's 75% of the season. I watch. It's fun. Will they have cussing on, or are they already cut out? We're actually going to touch on that a little bit later, Thor, and that's a big topic of conversation. I made a video on that earlier in the week on my profile, the Motorsport Enthusiast. So yes, that is something we're going to talk about, and that's the big question, isn't it? But I think with Lewis Hamilton, I think he'll win a few races. I mean, I predict him. I think he could win 5. I know it's bold, but I think he could win 5 or 6 races. I think on the Flag to Flag podcast that I co-host with Chad Barker, I think that I said he would get 5 or 6 wins this year. So if you have 7, 8 winners, and let's say, let's say 7 winners, both, all multi-time. So that's 14 races right there. If they win 2 races apiece, 6 of those, let's say you got an 8th winner, which would be Lewis, that moves up to 20. So could he win a championship? That's the question. Got a question here from Sophia, my wife. She asks, "Who is the cutest of them all?" Referring to drivers. In my humble opinion, I got to go with Chuck. I got to go with Charles Leclerc. I just got to do it. I cannot say Charles. He's my boy. He's my boy. You can't see his hat, but it's right up there. His diecast is actually right there. So had to do with that one. So I think that's funny because I wasn't gonna originally ask that one, but I thought it'd be really funny to do that. So since we're on this topic, who is the cutest F1 driver? A2IL fam, drop it in the comments. I'm curious. Had to do it. I had to do it. I had to do it. Had to do it. Let's add some fun to this. Thorin, I bet you have an opinion. Maybe Adam. Every time that I ask a question, I should have a button that cues the Jeopardy theme music to see what we get first. I'm gonna hide that so we can go full screen, and I'll show a comment. Man, nobody has opinions on the best looking F1 driver. Man, I give my thoughts. Everybody's too embarrassed to give theirs. Like, come on. Well, I guess we'll move on. I guess we'll move on. Talking about another subject, looking at specifically what's coming up here on the schedule, though, the next piece of information and the next thing that's really dropping soon are the cars. And so we have that big livery drop on the 18th. But before that, we actually have Williams releasing their 2025 car on the 14th of this month. So Friday, the Friday before the Daytona 500 and the Friday before they have that big reveal of all the liveries. So I'm curious, does that mean that they're going to release the next generation of that Williams car with the old livery, or are they going to have the new livery on it? So you have that drop on the 14th. Reference my notes here. You have the F1 2025 season launch on the 18th, which is only liveries, and that's a big misunderstanding I've seen a lot of fans actually have, is that there is there's a misconception about what's actually happening in that season launch. So it's actually going to be just the liveries. It's not going to be the cars. Now Williams, I don't know how they're going to do that because they've already released the cars. So, but I'm very excited to watch. So that happens on the 18th. Ferrari releases their car on the 19th. I'm very excited to see that with Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. You have Aston Martin on February 23rd. Then on my birthday, February 24th, you have Mercedes going to release their 2025 cars. So I think from what I've heard, a lot of the cars should look good. And for Ferrari, I know that I've heard rumors that they're going to go to a deeper red, back to what you saw with the F175 and the F1 or the SF 23. So I think that's going to be interesting to see what those cars look like from that perspective. Also, want to thank everybody for tuning in on Twitter as well. Big presence over there on Twitter. Same thing on YouTube if you're watching this live. So thinking about F1, I'm excited for the season, and I'm excited that we are going to get Drive to Survive back too on the 7th. So let's ask another question. This one is from door number 24 on Instagram. What do you think the 2025 Ferrari will look like? Kind of already covered that. Um, I think it will be that deeper red. I think it'll be a little bit more white than we expect, because the uniforms, they do have some elements of white, slight black in there. I think that you may see, and I hope they do this. I would hope that they have a white rear wing and a white front wing, and it reminds me of some of the F1 cars from the early 2000s with Ferrari. So I hope that that's what happens. But again, I think it's going to be your typical Ferrari red. It's going to be the majority red now with HP coming on board. We've seen that the livery kind of shift from a blue to a white, um, and all that. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how they leverage those colors. But I believe the car will be my majority white, from the rear wing and the front wing. So and obviously the red on the body. So not much change, but I think the wings will look good. Adam has a question over on YouTube. Among the rookies in F1 this year, who wins their first? Oh, I think Kimi Antonelli. Either Antonelli or well, I'm not going to consider Lawson. I was like, oh, maybe Lawson, but I'm not going to consider him a rookie. Um, out of the best of the rest, I think Kimi has the best chance. Mercedes, I think, is better than the rest of the pack, at least right now. But again, we don't know. We haven't seen the cars yet. We have testing coming up here at the end of the month. But among the rookies in F1, who wins first? I think it's going to be Kimi. I think I read an article that Toto has been impressed with him so far, and I think he'll somehow get there. Now, what race that'll be, I don't know. Is it going to come early in the season? I don't think so. But unless we get one of those races like we get Brazil when you have a double Alpine podium and you have one of those crazy races, I think it'll come towards the back end of the season when you have the upgrades coming in. And, we've seen how, Mercedes progressed last year. Beginning of the season wasn't great. Then they started to pick up some speed. We saw what happened with Spa. So I think that they will have speed at Spa, and maybe we'll see Mercedes win again, and maybe it'll be at Spa. So Adam, appreciate the question there. That's always a fun one. When it comes to the rookies, and we have a ton of rookies: Isaac Hajar, Ali Behrman, Antonelli, three of the big ones right there. And I'm very curious, Bortoleto coming in as well. It's a great time for Formula One because you have the new cars coming in next year, the new regulations coming in. You have, I mean, a fifth of the grid is rookies, or a fourth or a fifth of the grid are rookies, and you have drivers. Two teams that only have the same driver lineup as last year. I think it'll be very interesting to see what actually will happen once the season unfolds and once you start seeing some movement with the teams and with the upgrades. So speaking of things that have been upgraded and different places and new faces, we actually have some pretty cool news coming out of Williams. Actually, Jacques Villeneuve is actually going to be a Williams ambassador, the 1997 world champion, where he got all of his wins from at Williams. He'll be in an ambassador role ahead of the 2025 season, alongside Jenson Button and alongside Jamie Chadwick, a great figure in motorsports when it comes to women getting in the sport. I think this is amazing for Williams. I mean, they're putting what I think all the right people in all the right places, bringing in these people that are knowledgeable, or have a great reputation in Formula One and motorsport as a whole. And I think that you have a lot of good movement in Williams going into 2025. Also, if you're watching this on Twitter, thank you. Got like 30 plus people on Twitter. That's awesome. Or X, however you want to call it. Love that. So I think that Williams is in a great spot. And let's talk about Williams. I'm very curious to see what you all think. I'm only seeing the YouTube chat, which, I mean, maybe there's a chat on. No, it says there's a chat. Yep, there's a chat for X. What do you think? How do you think Williams will do? Because a lot of people think that they're not going to be great. Now, again, bringing Carlos Sainz and signing on a sponsor isn't he's not going to be your savior. It's not going to fix everything. But I'm curious, what do you all think of Williams this year? Will we see a podium? Will we see a win? I'm curious. Cue the Jeopardy theme music now. I wish I could do that. I got to set up the button next time for that one. While this is going, I'm going to look at X really quick and see if I'm seeing any comments, because I do not want to miss that from y'all at all. No, don't see any comments. Cool. Okay. So I'm not missing anything on that side. Fantastic. I did not want to miss that from y'all. So looking at Williams, I think that they can get a podium for sure. I think that they will get potentially a win. I think that Williams has an amazing chance to bring in, you know, continue to bring in talent. And with Carlos, I think they have a great chance of maybe not winning a Grand Prix outright. I think they could have an Alpine situation where they had, like, the double podium at Brazil. But again, I think that with how this year's going, I think it could be great. Um, Aston Estiva says, let me bring this over actually. I think Williams will have a car that can deliver for 2026. For 2025, they might be able to finish sixth, but Haas also have some strong pace, I think. I'll second that. I think there's a lot of good movement within Haas too. And so the question is, who's going to get there first? Who's going to get to the finish line first? I hate that pun. I thought about it. I was like, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. I think you make a really good point about Haas, uh, and a good point about Williams in 2026. They could be, basically sandbagging the whole 2025 season just to prep for 2026. Now, again, you obviously have everything coming into, the cost cap. You have things coming into wind tunnel time to allocations of funds based on where you finish. So I think it's kind of that, you're stuck between a rock and a hard spot. Okay, do you go hard in 2025 and kind of sacrifice your existing resources for 2026, or do you take that gamble and try to put in, a good season in 2025 and have it pay off by finishing, higher up in the constructors championship or the drivers championship? That's, I think, the big question that these teams are going to have. And not even, Williams, but looking at, Kick Sauber, looking at Alpine, looking at all those teams, Haas. I think you have that same question, what do you do? Because everybody's going to be on that level playing field to a point at the start, but obviously you have resource allocation that will dictate things. You have drivers, sponsors, new team, Cadillac coming in 2026, which is going to be the big change for Formula One, seeing 22 cars on the grid. So again, what is Formula One going to look like next year? That's the big question that I think a lot of people just have no idea what it'll be. But thanks for that. Thanks for that comment. I think that's a really good point. Looking at 2026 and looking at Haas too, and I would love for Haas to get a win. I really would. I think their best chance is with Behrman. I'm a big fan of him, obviously, because he has done work with Ferrari before, but I think he showed skill in that Ferrari, and obviously Ferrari powers the engines behind Haas. I think that there's something there, and what are they going to do? That's the question. Are they going to be able to prioritize this car enough, or are they going to focus on 26? That's the big question. But moving on to another question that we have, um, looking at, let me see. So, got a basic question here. What is Formula One? So, Formula One is one of the most recognizable motorsports in the world outside of MotoGP. And it is, I would say, one of the most taxing, and it's the most global. And so, very, very basic answer. Um, it is a series that is built off of, obviously sponsors and technology, but a lot of it's built off of funding and how much, these teams can invest in, and the money side of things, that travels the globe. I mean, it's really cool. It's really, really cool, especially if you're into travel. That, like, if you're into travel and you want to get into Formula One, that's probably, I would say, one of the best motorsport to get into, because they go so many places. I mean, all over the world, and hopefully expand to more. I mean, like Adam was saying, right here in his comment, would we like to see the German GP come back to the F1 schedule? Absolutely. I think having races, and as many realistic, possibilities and locations as possible, for sure, you have to. I think to grow the sport. I mean, that's why I think when it, not don't want to switch this over to another sport entirely, but why I love the move that NASCAR is going to Mexico City. They're trying something new. I think Formula One has shown strides to doing that here so far in 2025. So we'll see what happens on this 24 race calendar, if we're going to extend that or if we're going to see some races get changed out. Because I know there was a question about Spa, how there was some years, I can't remember if it was 2029 and 2031, if those are the 2 years that potentially are not going to run at Spa. I can't remember specifically, but um, that's a question that we'll have to see what happens for another time. But moving on, we got another topic. Let's talk about the F1 movie. So we have a hint during the Super Bowl about this F1 movie that's dropping this summer, and I'm curious, just yes or no, who is going to go watch this F1 movie? Because I think it could be a great movie to go see, depending on how they do it. But I'm curious, who's going to go watch the Formula One movie, and I'll drag in some comments once I start to see them come in. I know I'll watch it as a motorsport fan. Of course, I'm not going to miss it. So I'm very curious to see what you are going to do. See if you're going to go watch these movies, um, or watch the movie. I think the trailer looked great. I think there's a lot of bones to this. Uh, yeah, Adam chimed in and said, "Yep, he's going to watch it." Cool. That'd be really cool to go see Adam. I think it's going to be a good one. And also, got to shout out Twitter. 47 live viewers. Thank you. That's impressive. 47 of you are live on Twitter/X. So thank you all for tuning in. And if you're watching on X, comment please. I want to know your thoughts. We can chat and talk about this. Um, got another one coming in from YouTube. Yeah, I'm gonna be when I go to Madrid. There you go. Absolutely. Watching movies overseas is it's fun. I think it'll be a great movie. I think it's going to be a great time to be a Formula One fan simply because of the fact that you have this, worldwide acknowledgement of the sport with not only the sport as a whole, but with TV entertainment. It's at an interesting peak right now, to say the least. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a great movie. Uh, I hopefully there's not too much that's spoiled from it from people posting things, about uh, what they've seen at Grand Prix because obviously there. I'm not going to spoil too many things, but there was a wreck that was shown at a specific GP, so we'll have to see what the heck that looks like. But yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to see what this movie will do. I'm very excited to see what this movie will do. Moving on to another topic, I have a whole sheet of notes. I'm ready for y'all today. One thing that's been a hot topic in Formula One is the radio chatter ban. Um, with the FIA president, MBS, basically coming out and saying word for word, do we go on and then shut down the radios of live communications? Maybe. Do we delay it? Maybe. And this is in response to specifically the drivers cursing and the image of the sport and whatnot. And I think that there is an aspect of Formula One that you would lose if you take this away. And, I don't think you have to go as far as, you know, muting these team radios over a broadcast and shutting down the live radios. Just don't show the ones that are, if you don't want to show drivers, swearing, just don't play the ones that drivers are swearing. I mean, it would take it away for sure. We wouldn't get to see Yuki, go off on drivers like we normally are expected to see. But I mean, if that's what they want to do, just don't take it away. I think it adds a lot to it. And going back to going back to a previous question, you know, right here from Thorin, I watched going to talk about Drive to Survive. It's fun. I watched, but will they have cussing on it or are they already cut out? I don't know. That is the big question because all the content's been shot. And my guess it's already been edited. So and we got this news about the cussing last month, I believe. Around the 15th, I would say. So it is it too much to cut out? I think that's the question because we've seen Drive to Survive not hold back. They would have to basically re-edit a lot of things or just cut it out or bleep it out. But then again, based off of what the FIA says in their principles, is even having that in the sport, even having that in Drive to Survive, even bleeping it out, is that enough? I don't know. Uh, will they have cussing on it? I don't know. As an adult, I think they should. I mean, it looks like there are some people who do agree with this, but from what I've seen, the vast majority are like, this is too far, um, with the cursing and also with the potential ban. And also, another statement says, "There's a lot of things we will work on with our promoters. We are still the owners of the championship," and that I think is the big thing. I don't want to play devil's advocate here, but they do, they do run it, they do own it. I mean, they can kind of do what they want, and you've seen this happen in other sports and with a bunch of different areas, and that's the lay of the land. They can really do things and call the shots. So I'm curious, what do you all think? Because I think Thor and I can get your opinion on this. already, but do you think that it's too far to ban the driver radios live on a broadcast? Do you think it's too far? Do 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 do. I was gonna play that live, but I'm not now. Also, Twitter fam, y'all are repping hard. I mean, you gone from 30 to 50. Absolutely, y'all been really good. Respect the YouTube fam too. Respect the YouTube fam. Also, why am I 720? Said I'm at 720p right now. Should be at 1080. Either way, I realize there is a lag when it comes to comments. So, oh me. I don't think banning the live radios is a good idea. Honestly, I think that it's a little too far in my personal opinion. But either way, we'll see what happens as we go through and as we move on. So, looking at some things that are happening in Formula One as well. Like we said, the livery reveal on the 18th. I want to touch on that a little bit. So, this livery reveal is going to be the biggest that we've seen with all the teams collectively coming together now. Again, there's a lot of misunderstanding. We've seen drivers that that have come out, or not drivers, but fans that are like, "Oh, I thought we were going to get the new cars. No, you're only getting the liveries." So I think that that's going to be an interesting aspect to this, and I'm excited to see all of them released together. I think if it's done right, I think it'll be really, really awesome to see everything uh, as a whole come together with this, and I think it's going to be really, really fun. I think it's going to be a fun event. Um, looking at no problem with the drivers' radios. Enjoy them. By the way, what's your take on the state of the FIA? Adam says. So with with the current situation at hand, I think there's some moves that I personally don't understand, um, which has been the recent um, statements in the recent regulations on what drivers can say. Now, again, I'm not for anybody, publicly, you know, basically talking down on another driver and, basically, belittling them and bullying them essentially. I'm not for that. But also that's completely different from the driver cussing on the radio. But it seems like there's not it's one and of the same in essence, to a point. And so I think that there are some definitely some questionable things been that have been put out there, and I would say I'm not the only one, but it's true, I'm not the only one. I mean, look on every platform. A lot of people are not happy with the FIA, and uh, tying this back over to something I heard from NASCAR executives. I like their approach to having people that are angry. So they basically were talking about different rule changes and things along those lines. And I forget the individual. Maybe it was the competitions director. Don't quote me on that. But it was somebody there that said, you know, there's always going to be somebody who's angry at you. There's always going to be, multiple groups of fans that are not happy with something going on. And basically, their job is to make sure if everyone's at a equal level of anger, you know, that is when things are, you know, the best essentially. Because again, you can't make everybody happy, but then again, you can take things way too far. You can take things way too far. And so I think, recently the move of, banning or not banning, but prohibiting these drivers from saying specific things and all that, again, it's kind of ambiguous. We don't know what that means. And until we see this, in practice, I think that's when we're going to get our true answer about how restricting they're going to be when it comes to what drivers can and can't say. So I'll say with this, Adam, if it is going to be something along the lines where these drivers cannot swear at all, how and you're going to penalize them every time that they do that. Okay, how far is this going to go? Are you going to do it in just public settings, or are you going to do it when they're on the radio talking with their team? What if they wreck and they swear just out of the blue? I mean, like, is it every single altercation, or is it specific instances? We've kind of seen it lean to maybe in the public eye, but again, with how public these radios are, I mean, you could get to F1 TV and see every radio unfiltered the whole time. So again, you have the ability, if people want, to clip these and put them out on the internet. So that's the big question. how far is this going to go? And we won't know that until the season drops. I just feel bad for Yuki. I don't know if he has enough money to be able to pay all these fines. I really don't. I really don't. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Hopefully it's not as intense as we are anticipating. But again, I'm excited. I think this F1 season is going to be great. And let's talk about the F1 season right now. So we're going to start off in Australia. I'm going to pull up the schedule. We're going to start off in Australia with which is a great spot. Albert Park is one of my favorite tracks. It's so cool to see this. It's a street circuit to see this. Come to fruition. Um, Going there first, and so obviously we have um, the preseason testing coming up on the 26th of the 28th, and I want to touch on that too. Looking at the preseason testing, there is a lot of speculation on okay, how is Lewis going to do? What is Lewis going to do when it comes to testing? I think you have to look at testing with, a little bit of a critical eye. But again, it's testing. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how this racing is going to go when it comes to. We don't know how these cars are going to perform because where they're going to test and Sakari is very different than Australia, very different than China round 2 or Japan round 3 or Bahrain round 4. All these racetracks are different, so I think you got to take it with a grain of salt. But also, you can learn a lot of valuable insights. We've seen in testing where the porpoising was an issue. We remember how that went, and with the current state of the sport, I'm curious to see how much this is going to differ from 2024. And I've heard other people say this, and I agree with them. I think that 2025 could be 2024 Part B. I really do, because you have these drivers, you have a lot of teams that are focusing on the new season, also focusing on new operations, focusing on 2026, new drivers coming in. I think it's just going to be an extension from an excitement perspective of 2024. And like I said, 2026 is brand new, but 2025, you still have a championship to fight for. You still got a championship to fight for. I think it's going to be interesting to see who's going to battle, who's going to move into the direction of trying to win that drivers championship. So speaking of the drivers championship, who do you think is going to win the 2025 Formula One World Championship? Who do you think has the best shot? Who do you think is going to win? I guess those are can be two different answers. But who do you think is going to win the championship? I really need to have this queued up. That'd be really cool. I can do music, it says. I'm not going to worry about that. Now I lost my chat. There we go. Who is going to win the 2025 World Drivers Championship? Ah, drop my phone there. Looking over at Twitter. Don't see anything. Okay. I think that it's you know, if we knew the kind of car that Lewis Hamilton was going to drive and how that's going to perform, I think he could be a fair shot. But obviously, Max is strong. I'm very question. Oh, look at that. Let's see. What do you think of Mercedes? There we go. I think Mercedes has a good shot. I think Mercedes has a very good chance of winning races for sure with George, with Kimmy. Now, drivers championship, I'd be shocked. I wouldn't put them in my top three to win the drivers championship or the constructors. I think it's going to be a three-way fight between Red Bull, Mercedes, and or Red Bull, Ferrari, and McLaren for sure. Got another question from the channel from A2IL Media. I bet that's Taylor. Hey Taylor. What do you think of Lewis Hamilton's chances of winning a drivers championship? If they can, if the strategy can deliver, he doesn't has a he. There's no question of skill. I think it's going to be a matter of can the car do it. I think it's not. It's not. I don't think it's him. I think it's the car. It's not me. It's you. I think it will be a question of how good that car is going to be now. If the car is as good as it was last year, then you have a big question. I mean, I think he could. I think he could definitely win multiple races. I think he has a chance to win the drivers championship. And I have one question or one comment from Adam. I'm trying to take my bias out of this, but this just makes my heart happy. Charles Leclerc wins the 2025 F1 World Championship. That just makes my heart so happy. Um, let me tell you, whenever he wins, it's emotional. Oh my gosh, got some emotional ties to Charlotte. That's a couple reasons why he's my favorite driver. Not outside of the fact that he drives for Ferrari, my favorite team, because they're an Italian team. Because I'm Italian, I think that um, I think he has. If again, I think if Lewis and Char in both equal cars, and Lewis can pick up, you know, speed quick, which I think he can. It's Lewis Hamilton. I mean, we saw what happened when he went to Mercedes, and I think that if out of the two, I think that Lewis would secure it because I think he's better than Leclerc. I really do. But Leclerc is a great option. I mean, I think that is not unrealistic. Because looking at the championship now, it's actually Lando Norris has the best odds, right behind Max Verstappen, or right ahead of Max Verstappen in second, Charles Leclerc in third, and Lewis Hamilton in fourth. Those are the current odds as of last night I saw. And Lando just jumped up to that top spot. It wasn't always Lando, it was Max. It was Max, Lando, Char, and Lewis. Now it's Lando, Max, Char, Lewis. So, howdy. So that was Taylor. How's it going, Taylor? Good to have you in our channel. Got 63 people watching on X right now, which is amazing, amazing. And I that's a first. I mean, I haven't been live on X before, but that's amazing. So thank you all for tuning in. Got a 5 live or 6 live now on YouTube. So love that, love that, love that, love that. So yeah, we got about 18 minutes left of this episode of F1 Track Limits, Formula One Chill and Chat with me. So if you have any questions, this is the time to ask. I'm gonna look back into my other questions. Got a question: who's going to win every race? It's definitely going to be Charles Leclerc. Absolutely, every single one of them. But who are my predictions to win races this year? I'm going to go team by team. I think starting with Red Bull. I think Red Bull will win a race, obviously with Max. I think Liam could have a shot. I think it's going to be a day where Max struggles though, and Liam has to have track position. I'm kind of worried about the car. I'm worried about the car because of what we saw with Checo. Um, I'm kind of worried about how he's going to perform, but Liam can do well. We've seen him be able to be consistent. Liam, maybe. I think out of the two, I think you're going to see Max probably secure. Definitely, he's going to be the winningest driver of Red Bull this year, and probably the only driver that's going to win in Red Bull. Looking at Ferrari, I think both drivers win. I think Charles wins a race. I think that Lewis wins a race. McLaren, if Lando can fix his freaking starts, I think Lando could seal a couple for sure. And I think Oscar can too. If obviously he won last year. One of the wins he had to give up the win, or he was given the win because of team orders. I think both McLaren drivers win. Looking at Mercedes, I think Mercedes has an interesting take here. I think both Mercedes drivers win. Now, I think that I think that George is going to have a better shot than Kimi, but I think both drivers win. I'm looking at now the driver lineup. Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso. Sorry, I don't think either of those drivers will win in 2025. I mean, you have Adrian Newey, sure, but again, you have Lance Stroll, and then you have no disrespect to Fernando. He's still got skill, but it's not you know prime Fernando. So you have to take that into consideration. So we'll see. But is Adrian Newey going to be the end all be all fixer of this? I think the car will be better, but we'll see. But I don't think either of them win. Pierre Gasly and Jack Doohan. This is an interesting one. I think people are sleeping on Pierre. I really do. I think Pierre could win a race this year. Uh, Jack, I don't know. I want to see what he does. I think Pierre could win one on a absolute fluke, though. I think he could win one on the fluke. Uh, and I put them lower on my totem pole to win a race than Williams. But I think that's where that stands. Uh, Racing Bulls, sorry, no. Kick Sauber, no, sorry. Uh, Haas, Haas is interesting because looking back at a couple of other comments, let's see, where was it? Where was this comment? Hold on. Right here by Aston. But Haas also has some strong pace, he says at the tail end of this. I think that is true. Do they win a race with Esteban Ocon or Behrman? Not this year. I unless it is where you see a lot of the top teams, the big three, the top three struggle. I don't think you see Haas outright winning a race. I think you're going to have something of circumstance happen. So I think that's the biggest thing about that. It's going to be something of circumstance. Now the fun one, Williams. I've waited to say Williams for last. I have a special place in my heart for Carlos Sainz, obviously as a Ferrari fan, but unbiasedly, looking at what they've been able to do, now adding Jacques Villeneuve, adding Jenson Button, Jamie Chadwick, you have, Vals, who he's a great strategic mind in Formula One, very calculated, very methodical. A lot of people don't like how he interviews, whatever. I think he has a great mind. I think that you could see Williams win a race. I think they have a better shot than Alpine. You also have Santander coming over with Carlos Sainz. Obviously, Carlos and Albon, from a skill perspective, I think are up there. I think they're within the top 6 teams when it comes to driver skill. Um, Specifically, when you're looking at just overall team duos, would it be surprising for me to say, or would it be surprising for a Carlos Sainz to win a race? I think it'll be on less of a fluke of an Alpine win. I think it's possible. I genuinely believe that you could see Williams win a race in 2025. I really do. If it's going to come between the two, I think Carlos has the edge. Um, but Albon too. Albon performs well. I think that you'll see Williams perform well in 2025. I think you will, and I think that, and by well, I mean like one podium, maybe one win. Um, could there be another Alpine double podium Brazil rain situation? Sure, but I think it's going to come in one of those races where you probably don't expect it. Maybe late in the season. I don't think it's going to be early. I think it's going to be late in the season. So those are my thoughts. But looking through the F1 calendar, let's talk about that really quick. So we're going to start in Australia. If you don't already know, start in Australia and then move to China, Japan, Bahrain, then Saudi Arabia. Then we see our first race in the United States with Miami. Moving on now to the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. That's such a good one. Followed by Monaco, the big day in motorsport there with the Indy 500 and the Coke 600. You have Spain, Canada for round 10, Austria for round 11, Great Britain for round number 12, Belgium round number 13, Hungary, the Netherlands, and Italy make up round 14, 15, and 16. Italy, gosh, that's such a fun one. That's such a fun one over there. Uh, and I think it's going to be a great race at Monza. I really do. Azerbaijan, round 17, Singapore, round 18, USGP, round 19, and Mexican GP with round 20. Brazil, Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi rounding out the tail end of the schedule. So the big changes this year, looking at the schedule, has been with breaks. So there's not a huge break like we've seen, but we've seen what we're going to see are like uh, more 2 to 3 week breaks than a huge like month long. And that just is due to the schedule changes. But obviously, it starts off with Australia in the beginning. So I think it's going to be a great season. I really do. I think it's going to be a phenomenal season. And if anybody has any other questions, obviously X is performing really well. I thank everybody who's watching right now on X. YouTube fam, always love y'all. Facebook, not many on Facebook. Maybe that's something we need to work on. Build up that Facebook audience and get some Formula One individuals. I wouldn't go to Facebook to watch a live video, anyways. And that's a good question. So I'm curious, if you were to watch a live video, if you were to watch Track Limits live, where would you watch it? Where would you want to watch that? Either Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, maybe Kick, maybe Twitch. Where do you get your live streams, actually? If you're gonna watch a live stream, where are you gonna go? Again, I wish I could cue the button. Cue the button to the Jeopardy theme song, but I can't. Unfortunately, I can't. Also, I wonder. Let's see. Yeah, 64 people. Yep, it says 64. That's awesome. That's incredible. So I'll give my thoughts on this. Still increasing on good old still Twitter kicking ass right now. I love that. So I think YouTube will stay. I think YouTube is a great audience for Track Limits. I think it's a great place for streaming too. So obviously there and X. I mean I'm not going to sleep on y'all anymore. That's amazing. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been fun so far. As we have 9 minutes left, gonna hop off about 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. But yeah, looking at that, some fun other topics we have to cover. Let's see. Talked about everything really. A big topic of conversation has been Lewis though. But let's get off the topic of Lewis and let's talk about some of these rookies really quick. You have Kimi Antonelli, you have Behrman, you have Hajar, you have Bortoleto. You have these rookies that are coming in that I think are going to make a big splash, and so I think it's going to be very interesting, very very interesting to see how these rookies perform. I think it's going to be chaotic. I think you're going to see a lot of races where the experience just hasn't set in just naturally because they're rookies. But I think the talent's going to be there. And I think the hype around this season is going to be great too. I think it's going to be a good one. As I look at this, I want to look back through some of the comments that we've had on the socials. Going back to really quick, the F1 movie. I have high expectations for the F1 movie. I think it'll be a great one, and I think that it's going to be uh, hopefully in depth enough to give the non-fan or the new fan enough details into what actually goes on in F1, but also draws people in by the stories and draws people into the personalities behind Formula One. I think that's one of the big aspects why a lot of people like F1. A lot of the new fans is due to the personalities. So, but Adam, I appreciate you for tuning in and being a constant viewer. Aston as well, love that. And same thing with Thorin. So if you're watching this live, thank you for watching on a replay. We will be going live more on Track Limits in the future. Next week's video, depending on how it goes, it might be live, but might drop another video right before the launch. The launch, talking about the launch and how that's going to go, and a lot more details about what this launch is going to look like because we have that launch coming up a week from tomorrow, February 18th. I'll be tuning into that for sure. Hopefully, all y'all will tune into that as well. I think it's going to be a fun one to tune into. I think it'll be interesting to see uh, what that's going to do. Tickets were not too bad, but still, tickets were pricey. It's F1. What do you expect with that? I'm curious. Random question: has anybody been to a Formula One race? And if so, which race have you been to? I've not gone to a Formula One race yet. My goal is to get to Coda this year. Um, that would be really cool. Went to Coda once before, not for a race. Um, but my goal is to get to Coda, maybe Vegas. That'd be fun. Do a little gambling down there with Vegas. See the race. All these cars go down the strip. I think there should be, all motorsports should go to Vegas once. Just see what happens. Imagine getting IndyCar down there or stock cars. Oh my gosh, that'd be crazy. But have you ever been to a Formula One race? Is a question. X is shy. The people on X are really shy. Not one comment. Unfortunate. Because I want to. I mean, there's a lot of y'all watching. A lot of y'all watching right now. But I've never been to an F1 race, which is sad. I want to go. I want to go. Almost went to Monza. Didn't. Darn train strike in Italy. Unfortunate. Didn't go for a race though. That would have been really cool. Monza's one of my bucket list tracks for sure. Monza's one of my bucket list tracks. But man, I guess everybody's shy. Or maybe it's just Super Bowl hangover. That's what it is. I'll take that. That's what it is. Everybody's just tired from the Super Bowl. Understood. Very little game. A lot of commercials and a halftime show. A football game just happened to break out in the middle of all these commercials and a halftime show with Kendrick. So, alrighty. Well, we are 55 minutes in. I don't think I'm going to get any more comments, which is, I believe, my time to hop off. So I appreciate everybody for tuning into this episode of Track Live or Track Live, Track Limits Live. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe on whatever or follow on whatever platform you are to ATYL Media. And the YouTube fam's awesome. Love the YouTube fam. We are trying to grow our YouTube as fast as we can. And we appreciate everybody for tuning in on X and tuning in on Facebook, and obviously everybody on YouTube. So stay tuned next week for the drop of Track Limits on Monday. It will be an actual video. It won't be live. I will premiere it, though, going live at 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And that will talk about everything going on with this F1 reveal and different details about that you need to know about, things to look out for, and maybe some predictions around what these cars will look like going into the 2025 season. Well, that's all from John. That is I, the motorsport enthusiast. We have reached the checkered flag and exceeded